Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive with us. Today we're focusing on something really powerful for unlocking your inner world, and that's journaling. But hold on, we're not just talking about any journaling, we're diving into the world of SEL journal prompts.
And that's what's so fascinating about this. It's taking something as simple as journaling, and by adding this framework of SEL, you can get these, aha moments that you might not
Okay,
otherwise.
so unpack that a little for us. What does SEL even mean in this context?
Yeah, so SEL stands for social emotional learning. Think of it as a toolkit for your inner and your outer world. So self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, responsible decision-making, those are your tools. And journaling can actually, believe it or not, really sharpen those tools.
Got it. So we're not writing out grocery lists here. To guide us, we have this awesome collection of 50 SEL journal prompts from Lestallion. And I gotta say, some of these are seriously thought-provoking.
Yeah, and they're cleverly organized into these categories because, SEL is multifaceted. We'll be exploring emotions, resilience, relationships, all through this lens of self-reflection.
Okay, so let's dive into that first category then, exploring emotions. One prompt that immediately grabbed my attention. Remember a time you felt truly happy, what made it so special? And we often kind of breeze past those happy moments. This makes you stop and really dissect, like the why behind the joy.
It's true. It's like instead of those happy moments just like evaporating, you're holding them up to the light, right? Like what were the elements? Was it the people? Was it what you were doing? Was it the environment? And by understanding the ingredients of your own happiness, you can start to maybe recreate those moments more intentionally.
Like reverse engineering your own joy. So I
Yeah.
see how that ties into self-awareness. And Lestallion doesn't shy away from the, tougher emotions either. There's this one, ever felt overwhelmed by sadness? How did you handle it?
Yeah.
And I mean, haven't we all been there?
We have. And you know what I like about this is it's not about dwelling in the sadness, but it's understanding how you respond. Do you isolate yourself? Do you reach out to a friend? Do you binge watch Netflix? You start to see these patterns, these automatic reactions to challenging emotions.
And once you see them, you can actually start to change them.
Exactly. And that's where the self-management piece comes in.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll realize, hey, every time I talk to a friend, I actually process sadness way better than if I just like go on Instagram. So that's a huge insight.
Thinking about it, I actually used journaling to deal with this really frustrating situation at work a while back. And instead of like firing off this email that I would have regretted, I wrote it all down in my journal first.
Interesting.
And it really helped me kind of process those emotions without, doing something I would regret.
There you go. You tapped into the power of journaling without even realizing it. And Lestallion has a prompt that directly addresses this. They say, think about a recent experience that made you feel angry or frustrated. How did you handle the situation? And what would you do differently next time? So they're prompting you to really learn from those moments and then how to develop those healthier responses.
It's like you're hitting the rewind button and figuring out how to handle it better next time.
Exactly.
Speaking of handling things, I'm really drawn to this next section on building resilience. Exploring those emotions kind of naturally leads us to think about how we handle challenges. And
Mhm.
that's where I think these prompts on building resilience, it really comes in. I think we all crave a bit more resilience in our lives, don't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, resilience is so essential, right? For just navigating the ups and downs, all the curveballs that life throws our way. And I think what I appreciate about Lestallion's approach here is they really emphasize that setbacks are universal. Like we all face challenges. It's not a sign of weakness.
It's so true. It's so easy to feel alone in those moments, but these prompts really hit home that like we're all kind of in this together. There's this one, think about a time you had to adapt to a big change. How did you adjust? And life throws those curveballs, and sometimes it's like you're swinging at air, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, like a growth mindset really comes into play, I think. It's that idea of viewing these challenges not so much as threats to our ego, but as opportunities for, learning and development. And journaling about those experiences, I think, can really help us, shift our perspective.
So instead of beating yourself up over, not adapting perfectly,
Mhm.
you can kind of ask yourself, what did I learn from this and how can I use this to grow from it?
Exactly. Lestallion actually has a prompt for that. It says, think about a time you experienced failure. How did you recover, and what did you learn from the experience? And this one can be tough to sit with, but it's so powerful.
Because failure is so often stigmatized, but is such a valuable teacher.
It is.
I'm thinking at this time, I completely bombed this presentation at work, like wanted to crawl under my desk and disappear.
Yeah.
But instead, like, I journaled about it. And guess what? It made me realize, like, oh, my fear of public speaking is a thing.
Mhm.
I need to work on this. And so I ended up joining Toastmasters, and it totally changed my relationship with presenting.
Wow. There you go. You took that experience, you reframed it, and then you emerged even stronger, right? That's resilience in action.
Yeah.
And it sounds like journaling played a key role in that process for you.
It helped me shift my perspective, for sure. Okay, so we've talked about, like, exploring our emotions, building resilience, and now let's get to the juicy stuff. Relationships.
Ah, relationships, the source of like our greatest joys and sometimes our biggest challenges.
Tell me about it. But seriously, like, how can journaling, especially using these prompts, how can it actually help us build stronger, healthier connections with others?
Well, I think it all comes back to self-awareness. By understanding our own emotions, our needs, our communication patterns, it equips us, right, to navigate like all those complexities that come with relationships.
So, like, before pointing fingers, we need to, like, understand our own role in the dynamic.
I can see how that would be really helpful.
Absolutely. And Lestallion has a prompt about this. It's reflect on a time when you had a disagreement with someone close to you. How did you resolve it, and what did you learn from the experience? So again, instead of placing blame, it's encouraging you to analyze your own actions and reactions.
It's like that saying, when you point a finger at someone, there are three fingers pointing back at you. Kind of harsh, but true.
It's true.
There's another prompt that I really connected with. It says, write about a moment when you felt truly understood by someone. What did they do to make you feel this way? Because understanding that feeling of being heard, like really heard, I think it's so important. Oh, it's huge. It's fundamental to a healthy relationship. And I think once you understand what it feels like to be truly heard, you can become a better listener for others too.
Which actually reminds me of another one of Lestallion's prompts. It says, describe a relationship that has significantly impacted your life. What makes this relationship special? Because relationships, I mean, they shape us for better or for worse, right?
They do. They absolutely do. And I think this prompt really encourages you to kind of reflect on those relationships, understand their impact on who you are today. Maybe it's a positive impact, maybe it was challenging, but it's all part of your story.
And sometimes, understanding those patterns in our relationships, it can kind of help us break free from some of those unhealthy cycles.
Precisely. It's about recognizing the patterns, understanding where they come from, and then making, conscious choices to create healthier, more fulfilling relationships moving forward.
I like that. Shifting from, like, autopilot to conscious choice. Man, this deep dive is really making me think.
Yeah.
So we've tackled, like, emotions, resilience, and relationships. What's next on this journey of self-discovery? This is really making me think about, like, the patterns in my own life.
That's exactly what these prompts are supposed to do. It's like they're giving you a little nudge to say, hey, pay attention to this.
Okay, so we've tackled emotions, resilience, relationships. What's next on this, like, self-discovery journey?
Well, next we go even deeper into ourselves, right? We have the self-discovery section. These prompts, they really encourage you to explore these like hidden parts of yourself, your values, your passions, all of that.
No, I love that. So it's like we're on this archaeological dig, but instead of ancient artifacts, we're uncovering these, like, hidden parts of our own personalities.
Yeah. I love that analogy.
I try.
And Lestallion does not disappoint with these prompts. One that I thought was really interesting is write about a time when you discovered something new about yourself. What was it and how did it change your perspective?
I love that one. Because I think we're constantly evolving, discovering new things about ourselves, but we don't always take the time to really acknowledge those shifts.
That's so true. Like we're so busy moving on to the next thing that we don't pause.
Yeah.
And this prompt is like that invitation to just pause and reflect on those moments of growth.
Speaking of growth, there's this other one that says, describe a situation where you had to step out of your comfort zone. How did it feel? And what did you learn from that experience?
Yeah.
Because I'm such a firm believer, I think real growth happens outside of that comfort zone.
Absolutely. And often it's those experiences that seemed like, scary or uncomfortable at the time that end up being the most rewarding, because they push us to grow. They push us to adapt, to discover these hidden strengths we didn't even know we had.
It's like that quote, like the magic happens outside your comfort zone. Okay, so before we get too comfortable here, What's next in Lestallion's lineup?
Well, I think after all that self-discovery, it's time to address the elephant in the room, or maybe I should say the ever-present challenge of modern life,
Yeah.
which is stress. Lestallion actually dedicates a whole section to managing stress.
I was just thinking about that section.
Yeah.
Because there's no escaping stress, is there?
Not really, but we can learn to manage it way more effectively, right?
Right.
And Lestallion starts off strong with this prompt. Describe a recent stressful situation. How did you feel? And what steps did you take to manage your stress?
It's all about, like, awareness, right?
Oh, I like that. It's like we become stress detectives. Like,
Yeah.
what happened? Let's analyze.
Analyzing the situation, your reaction to it.
Because often we just like power through without really understanding like what caused it or how we typically deal with it. And sometimes, honestly, just acknowledging the stress and how it impacts us is a huge step. Lestallion has another prompt about this. It says, reflect on a time when you felt overwhelmed. What caused those feelings and how did you find relief? And I think it's just a good reminder that it's okay to not be okay, you know? We all feel overwhelmed sometimes.
It's so important to, like, normalize those feelings of overwhelm.
Yeah.
We all experience them, but we don't always talk about them.
We don't. And that's why I think journaling about it can be really powerful. It allows you to just like process those emotions in a safe, healthy way without any judgment.
It's like having a conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
You know, therapists you don't have to schedule an appointment with. I like that.
Yeah.
Lestallion also gets into, like, specific stress relief techniques. There's this one. Write about a stress relief technique that works well for you. How did you discover it, and how does it help you?
I love how practical that is.
It is practical. It's all about, like, creating that personalized toolkit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because what works for me might not work for you. Maybe it's yoga, maybe it's listening to music, maybe it's going for a walk in nature. The important thing is to find what works for you and to actually do it. Because it's so easy to let those self-care practices, like, fall by the wayside when life gets hectic. But Lestallion doesn't let us off the hook that easily. They even remind us about the power of boundaries. One prompt says, think about a time when you had to balance multiple responsibilities. How did you prioritize, and what did you learn from the experience? Because, you know, learning to say no, that's like essential for managing stress.
It is. It's like a superpower that so many of us, we struggle with because we have this culture of busyness. But learning to set those boundaries is crucial.
So true. Gosh, we've covered so much ground here. Exploring emotions, building resilience, how to navigate those tricky relationships, diving deep into self-discovery, and then, like, equipping ourselves to manage stress. These SEL journal prompts really do offer, like, a roadmap for personal growth, don't they?
They do. What I love most about them is that they really empower the individual. It's not like a one-size-fits-all approach. It's all about, like you said, self-discovery. And they are a starting point, a catalyst for self-reflection and for growth.
And the journey doesn't end with the prompt. It's what we do with these insights, these aha moments, that really makes a difference.
Absolutely. Taking those insights and actually turning them into action, into positive change.
I love that. This has been such an insightful deep dive. I don't know about you, but I'm grabbing my journal tonight.
Me too.
Big thanks to Lestallion for these thought-provoking prompts, and a huge thank you to you, our amazing listeners, for joining us on this journey of self-discovery. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.